Hey everyone, welcome back to week 2 of Catechism Fridays. I'm Pastor Zach, and this is for all the kids of our church here at Ammon Valley and for beyond. And so if you were here with us last week, you will remember, maybe, that we were talking about what it means to have comfort with God. To be comforted by Him, for our souls to take comfort in the good news of the gospel, that He loves us, He has paid the price for us with His Son Jesus, and that now we belong to Him completely. And so the second question we looked at last week asked us, how do we come to know this comfort in life and in death? And it gives us three parts of an answer. The first part was about knowing the misery of your sin. So knowing the guilt of your sin. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to know the grace of God. And the third is to know how to live with gratitude toward God and in relationship with God. And so we're going to be starting out with Lord's Day 2 now. And Lord's Day 2 is all about trying to explain that first idea of our guilt or our misery before God. Maybe you have done something wrong, and maybe in your life where you have sinned against God or against someone you knew, and you perhaps felt miserable about it. It did not make you feel good. You knew that what you were doing was wrong and was hurting that other person, or it was hurting God, and so you were saddened by that. I can remember one time when I was in third grade, there was this girl in my class who was a little bit different than many of us, and so a few of the boys in my class got the idea to start throwing avocados at her. We had an avocado tree at our school. I know that sounds weird, but we would throw them at her. I joined in on this, and we were hitting her with avocados, and it was really mean, and it was really not okay. And so we all thought it was funny, and thankfully she didn't get hurt by it all that bad, but we of course got in trouble. And we were taken before our principal that right away, that afternoon. And we had to sit with our principal, one person at a time, being told exactly what we had done wrong and being told our punishment and getting detention. And it was not a good feeling. I felt so bad because my principal knew about it and he had exposed my sin and he had shown me what I did was wrong. And so that's what we're going to be getting into, sort of that feeling of knowing that you've done something wrong and that you are miserable because of your sin. And don't go doing what I did, okay? That would be the wrong thing to do. You do not want to be miserable because of your sin. And so we're going to get back into the Catechism. Again, this is Lord's Day 2. This is the second week of the Catechism. And here's the question we ask in the third question. How do you come to know your misery? And the answer is that the law of God tells me. So how do we come to know our misery before God, our guiltiness before God? And the answer is God's law. Now, this is sort of like when you go into the bathroom in the morning. You may be just woken up and you may have some stuff on your face, or maybe you have dirt on your face, and you look into the mirror and you look at yourself in the eye and you realize that maybe you have some slobber on your face, or you have some dirt on your forehead, or maybe your hair is crazy. I know mine is in the morning. And so by looking into this mirror, you see exactly what needs to be fixed. And in the same way, when we look into God's law, which we see, for example, in the Ten Commandments, we see exactly how we have failed to live up to what God has called us to do. And so the next question says this, well, what does God's law require of us? And the answer it gives is this: Christ teaches us this in summary in Matthew 22. So Christ in Matthew 22 summarizes, or he explains what God's law is all about from the Ten Commandments. And he says this: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind and with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. And so the first commandment is to love God, and the second is to love our neighbors, our friends, our parents, our classmates, our teachers. Those are our neighbors. And then it says this, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. And what that means is that the whole Bible is built on these two commandments, to love God and to love neighbor. But the fifth question is where things get really interesting. It says this, can you live up to all this perfectly? Are you able to completely be perfect and to do all that God requires of you, to live perfectly up to this standard that God has given you? And the answer, it says, is maybe a little bit sad, and it should make us a little bit miserable. No, I have a natural tendency to hate God and my neighbor. A natural tendency to hate God and neighbor. Maybe you've seen this in yourself. Maybe when somebody asks you for a turn on the Xbox, you say, no, it's still my turn. I don't want to give you your turn. Or maybe somebody asks you to share some crayons at school. You say, no, these are my crayons. I don't want you to have my crayons. We tend to be very selfish. And this shows that we really deep down hate our neighbor and God. This is our natural tendency. And so it makes us miserable because we hurt our friends. We hurt people we love because we mistreat them. And we hurt God and we hurt our relationship with Him because we don't live for Him and we don't obey His word. And so that's what the Catechism is all about in this section in Lord's Day too. It's about our misery and our sin making us miserable. And so I hope that as you think about God's law, you see in it what it points out about your sin and the evil things that you feel inside. And this isn't to make you feel bad, but it's to totally expose and show exactly where you need God's love. God wants us to be honest with ourselves, honest with our sin, so that we can ask Him for forgiveness and so that He can change our hearts from within. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. I hope this sticks with you. This week you should be careful to think about how you have sinned before God and ask God for His forgiveness, okay? That's my challenge to you. Look into your hearts and ask God to forgive you. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.